on Instagram and Ravelry as Diva S. We have a podcast group called the Flame and Fiber Podcast Group on Ravelry. We'd love to see you there. And I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new to the podcast, then thanks for checking me out. If you're a new subscriber, thank you so much. I've gotten a few lately. And if you're returning, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming back. Thank you for all the lovely comments and messages I've gotten since last we met. I really, really appreciate it. I love to hear from you and know what's going on in your life and what you're knitting, and I really appreciate you letting me know. So anyway, it's been a little over 2 weeks since I podcast. I did it on a Friday night last time when Dennis was at his gaming night, and so I was downstairs, and but I'm back to Monday, so it's been a little more than 2 weeks, and I've been knitting like a crazy person. I have been cocooning. I haven't wanted to go out and do much. We take the dog out every day, and I did go grocery shopping once. But and we visited Dennis's parents, which we do at least once a week. But I have not been doing very much because I have not wanted to leave my house, which means I have a lot of knitting. I got a lot of knitting done. So since I've seen you, Happy New Year. I think I podcast on the 29th last time, so it was last year. So this is the first podcast of the new year. I hope it's starting out great for all of you. So far for me it has. I'm at my house because I haven't left. We had some bitter cold weather last week. It was 11 degrees during the high was 11. Fahrenheit, which is, I don't know what, minus 10, maybe? Minus 8, 9 centigrade. So that was fun. But Dennis and I have proper clothing. We took Pearl to the dog park in the last couple weeks since after the new year, and she loves it. Oh my gosh, she runs around, and we were there when it was 11, and there were actually other dogs there, which was good because we need other dogs because she loves to chase dogs, and she loves to have dogs chase her, and she runs and runs and runs, and because she has way more energy than Dennis and I do. So let those other dogs work her. That's my plan. So we're going after I finish recording this. We're going to take her today. It's a beautiful day. We haven't taken her for the last few days because it thawed, and that park is a mud pit. I actually didn't mind it when it was 11 degrees because it was frozen solid, and so there was no mud. But oh my gosh, the last time we were there, it was a mud pit, and it was actually treacherous because the ground was frozen, but it had like a half an inch of mud on top, and so every little contour of the ground you slid, and I had terrible traction and the wrong shoes on and the wrong boots on. So anyway, that's what we're going to be doing later, in case you were wondering. It's an okay day. I think it's going to be 20 today, and it's a little overcast, but a good day to run. It's been cold, so it shouldn't be too muddy. Hopefully. That's all right. I'll wear my muddy clothes and it'll be fine. I wanted to show you, I'm drinking my coffee, and I am so sorry, Susan. Susan sent me this for Christmas. Isn't this adorable? I showed it on my Vlogmas, but I didn't show it on the podcast. I just love it. And this and another gift I got for Christmas were tucked behind the poinsettia last time I podcast, and I forgot to mention him. Isn't he adorable? Oh my gosh. My only worry is that he's white and I'm going to dribble coffee. Which is what I'm drinking. Because it is, well, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. So this is my last coffee. The other gorgeous thing that was tucked into a Christmas card from the lovely Diane, who is a member of our group also, was this beautiful snowflake. Oh my gosh. It really makes me want to learn a little bit more about crochet. Isn't this so adorable? And it was just tucked in the card, and it was so lovely and beautiful. I plan to have a tree next year. I'm sure Pearl will be better and able to deal with the tree, and so Well, I'll put it up there. I have my ornaments up there, so I will put this up there so I can enjoy it all year. And then it'll go on the tree next year. So thank you, Diane. So anyway, 2 lovely Christmas presents that I forgot to mention on my last podcast. And I felt terrible. So I say I'll enjoy this all year if it's over there, but I'm still not in my room yet. I did take a before, so almost before video. I forgot, and I did move some stuff out, but I talk about that on the video. But I haven't done enough work in here. I've done some, but not enough to warrant showing you the before, because there's not much of an after yet. But I'm working on it. So anyway, but I've been knitting like a crazy person, so I will start talking about my knitting. I will start with my worsted boxy. I finished my worsted boxy. I made this out of the Duin yarn, which is the beautiful, gorgeous alpaca based yarn that I got from Mane in Chile. I love this yarn. I loved every minute of knitting it, which is a good thing because I will be frogging this sweater. I don't think I'll wear it. I am putting a picture here. I just asked Dennis to take, I just had it on. I asked Dennis to take a picture of it. And so I will show you a few pictures of me in this sweater. It looks like a tent. The problem, I'm pretty sure the problem is that this yarn, I could not find it on Ravelry. It's from Chile, and I guess it looks a lot thinner. This one is the Cascade Echo wool, and this is the Duin. And they are very similar in size, which means that I made a bulky boxy, not a worsted boxy. I think this yarn is bulky. It made a beautiful fabric, but it doesn't drape on me. It doesn't look good in a boxy. And, I mean, I really love the way it knit up. I also discovered that I feel a little prickle with alpaca, and I didn't realize that. And because I put it, this feels fine to me, but when I put it on and had it on without the shirt, it felt a little prickly to me. So this is the boxy, worsted boxy by Joji Locatelli. I love the boxy. It's been in my favorites since I started knitting. As soon as I saw it, I favorited it, but I haven't made it, and I just can't believe that it's going to be flattering on me. Certainly this one isn't. The other thing is that I think the sleeves are a little too small for me, especially since I have to wear a shirt under it, and I couldn't figure out how to put a coat on. I mean, how do you put a coat on when your armpit is here? So your armpit is here. So all of this is going in the sleeve of your coat. So anyway, I'm not going to keep this as a boxy, but I love the yarn. I really enjoyed knitting it. And I think I'm going to treat this like a bulky yarn that I'm pretty sure it is. And I'm going to make myself a cardigan. But I finished. So this is 1FO. It counts. I didn't weave in the ends because as soon as I finished it, I realized I just don't think I'd wear enough. I'd have to wear it only in the house because I can't figure out how to get it in a coat. And I just don't think I will. So I will be frogging my worsted boxy. But I will be making a cardigan out of it. And I think that will be lovely. And that will solve the problem of the little bit of a prickle factor, because I will wear it over a shirt. So So I'll just get more enjoyment out of this yarn because I will be re-knitting this yarn because it is so luscious. So this is the Doin' yarn, and I don't think I have a tag nearby anymore, but I've shown this to you for quite a while. This I got from my fiber share partner in Santiago, Chile. Hi, Money. And I'm going to be meeting her in person in about a month because Dennis and I are going to Chile in February. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. And so we will be spending a few extra days in Santiago and getting to meet Mani and her husband and Connie from Chili Knits. I'll be seeing her and I'm so excited. So I may be able to buy more of this yarn because I'm sure I'll be going to a yarn shop in Santiago, I hope anyway. I'll double check that because I was going to say I'm packing my yarn assuming I'm going to buy some, but maybe I shouldn't do that. Anyway, so I will be reknitting this yarn into a cardigan or a bulky pullover. I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm going to knit it into, but I really love it so much. I really like the look of the boxy, and it looks beautiful on the young things. And I've seen other people who, you know, have bigger bodies, more like mine, who look good in it. But I think at least it needs to be a fingering weight, so it will definitely drape more. So anyway, so that was kind of a disappointment, but that's my first FO. It still counts. I'm counting it anyway. I'm counting it. The second thing I'm going to show you, you have seen before. I finished my sockhead hat. This is my Advent sockhead hat that I started knitting during Advent. I finished it after because I decided to make my granddaughter sweaters and things like that, so I didn't have time right before Christmas to finish it. This is from my Advent front that I bought from the Fiber Nymph Dye Works. I can't believe I'm just putting this on my head. And I fixed my hair. So that I hope you looked at my hair really well because that was it. So this is it. I hope you can see. It turned out so cute. And I've been wearing this in the house when I'm cold. This is not going to do it for 11 degrees. But the other thing is the hats that I wear outside when it's really cold need to not be very slouchy or very big because I also put a hood over them sometimes. So anyway, I'm really happy with this. This is the Sockhead Slouch Hat by Kelly McClure. And the yarn is from Lisa at Fiber Nymph Dye Works. She has the 90% Knitting podcast. And I finished that. Frankly, I didn't have much to go. Because the decreases only go from here to there. So I was almost done because I had made it as long as I wanted to. So this is FO number 2. So FO number 3 actually turns out to be another hat. This is the Hive hat, and let me see. This is by Tanya Patterson. The pattern is by Tanya Patterson. I got that beautiful, beautiful hand spun from Juanita, who is She Spins on Ravelry and Instagram, and she has a podcast. With these hands, I think she calls it. But she's you can find her under She Spins on YouTube. And the pearl ridges of this hat are from her gorgeous hand spun. It was my favorite one. And as soon as I got it, I was like itching to knit it. And then the knit part of this is actually my hand spun. This is the hand spun. I don't know if you've been watching me for a while. You know that I purchased a fleece at Maryland Sheep and Wool. And I turned it into a woolen mill to process it into pencil roving. But I did take some of it home with me so that because I've never processed a fleece. So I took about a pound of it with me. And I processed that and I spun it up. And that's what this is. Sidebar, I don't have my pencil roving yet. I've emailed... I knew it took a long time, And, you know, and then we were away and 2 times and all this stuff. And so in December, I emailed her 2 times. I haven't heard from her. So now I need to call her and maybe make arrangements to pick up my fleece, because I do not have it. And the Maryland sheeping wool was in May, the beginning of May. So this is plenty of time. So I'm going to have to call her and say, hey, just ship me back my fleece or I'll come and get it. It's in Maryland. I forget the name of the... I'll put it down here and find, you know, I'll find it. Meadow something, the name of the fiber mill. So in case you want your fiber fast, you won't go there. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. They were so nice at the festival, but it's January. Anyway, so this is my hand spun. I have not blocked this. The beehive, I was afraid, oops, okay, now that really messed up my hair. So I was afraid, the beehive kind of has more of a roundy crown, but I was afraid that I was not going to have enough yarn because I had a limited amount. So I did the decreases and made it more like a pillbox top. It needs to be blocked because it's a little wavy, although on some level I don't really care. But it also feels a slight bit loose. This is a very cool pattern because it stretches. You can, you know, this. Anybody can wear this hat. Anybody bigger than me could wear this hat, but it's a little bit big. And in my knit night, Simona suggested that I maybe felt it just a little bit, just to tighten it up a little bit, since I have so much extra room. And I think that's a great idea. And then after I felt it, I can stretch it out to be flat on the top. It is, oh my God, I love this yarn. I am so excited about this hat. Oh, Juanita. So gorgeous. So gorgeous. Anyway, so that is FO number 3. Although I think I'm going to take Simona's suggestion and try to felt that down a little bit. Tighten it up just a little bit. So my next finished object, FO number 4, is, as I said, I'm going to SSK this year. I'm so excited. And they do a whole big thing with door prizes. And I guess they have tons and tons and tons of door prizes. And you win tickets to door prizes during doing knit along kinds of things during the beginning of the year till July. And the first thing that they posted right away was that they give tickets for knitting charity hats. So they have, you know, stipulations about what kind of hat. This is knit out of Knit Picks Brava, so it's 100% acrylic. I'll tell you, this was really nice yarn to knit with. I wouldn't hesitate to knit Isabel a sweater out of this. It feels great, and you can just, I mean, talk about no care. I mean, so with a hat for charity, you don't want people to have to worry about, you know, because if you're homeless, if you get a chance to, you know, wash and dry your clothes on a laundromat, you want to do it. And so anyway, this is the 2x2, and this is by Anne Gagnon, Gagnon, and I knit Dennis a hat out of this pattern, and it's a nice, easy, it's an easy knit. It's a 2x2 rib with decreases. I did a terrible job on the decreases. I'm not even going to show you how bad it was because I got off and I ended up. It's not, I mean, you know, it's not embarrassing. Whoever wears it won't be embarrassed. I'm sure they'll just be warm and it will be lovely. So this took 200 yards. So I get I get a ticket for every 100 yards I knit. So this is 2 door prize tickets. And, you know, I mean, I feel a little bad that I have to get something for knitting for charity. I haven't done much charity knitting. But anyway. I'm not going to feel guilty for not doing charity knitting. But I did some. So this is a hat. And so I guess the way that works at SSK is you just bring all your hats and then you get credit for them there. Rather than posting on the thread or anything like that. So I have a hat, 2x2 rib. I recommend that pattern. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. 2x2 it's called. And G, she calls herself on the page, but it's Gagnon, Gagnon. I may not be pronouncing that correctly. In fact, it's highly unlikely that I am. So this is FO number 4. So 2018 is the second year of the sweater. 2017 was the year of the sweater. I wanted to make sweaters, and I did. I made quite a few sweaters. I made, I finished 2 sweaters that were whips at the start of the year. Genesis Kerouac sweater and my Breeze. I made 2 Cell Gris sweaters, which are summer short sleeve t-shirt. I made the Malin sweater, M-A-L-I-N, by Isabel Kramer. And I made the Monte Rosa by Isabel Kramer. And I made a sweater called the Curry Inn for my mother. I made it twice for her birthday. And I made sweaters for my granddaughters. I don't remember how many. 4 maybe. Well, at least 4, because they each got one for their birthday. And then they each got one for Christmas. So it might have been more than 4 sweaters for the grandchildren. Okay. So, but I am still committed to making sweaters. I have quite a few shawls. Not saying I won't make any more shawls, because I like to knit shawls, and I am wearing my shawls. So, I will be doing that. I'm obviously knitting hats. I didn't knit a lot of hats before this, and so I could always use hats. I bought that mitten. Anyway, year of the sweater. I'm going to knit sweaters this year. So, I knit a sweater since I talked to you last. I showed you the Metropolitan Knits, and I'm going to stand up for a minute so you can see this, but I had Dennis take pictures, so I will be posting pictures. This is the Washington Square cardigan. So it's goes down, it's got a little bit of a lace pattern on the front, sleeves, plain sleeves and back, and so this is the Washington Square. And it is by Melissa Wehrle, W-E-H-R-L-E. Okay. So this pattern is in the Metropolitan Knits book. It's called Metropolitan Knits: Chic Designs for Urban Style by Melissa Wehrle. And there are several patterns in that book that I like, that I intend to knit. But this was the first one. This is Cascade Echo Ecological Wool. And this is in 100% undyed Peruvian Highland wool. And it comes in 250 gram balls with 478 yards in each ball. Skein, and I had 3 skeins, and I had 170 grams of yarn left over after I made this sweater. So it used a little bit more than 2 skeins for this. And this is the wool that I showed you against the Duin of my boxy. So this is a bulky yarn, and I think that is a bulky yarn too. So, the saga of this sweater. I started it on January 2nd. I finished it on the 12th, not counting the buttons, which I sewed on today. I actually bought that book because of this pattern, because I had 2 quantities, sweater quantities of this ecological wool, Cascade Ecological Wool, and I wanted to, make a cardigan. And so I looked in Ravelry under the yarn, and then I looked at cardigans that people had made using this yarn, and I found that, and so I ended up buying the book. This sweater is made in pieces. This is the first sweater, adult sweater, that I've made in pieces. I bought Amy Herzog's book, You Can Knit That, last year, and I'm going to make some sweaters out of that book too. And her sweaters are, for the most part, made in pieces. And so last year, and I guess it was in the spring, so the first sweater I made for Isabel last year, I made out of that book, because that book is set up so sweetly. So every section where it talks about a different kind of sweater, raglan or set-in sleeves or whatever, It starts with a children's pattern, so you can practice the technique on a child-size sweater so you don't have to start with an adult-size sweater. So I wanted to make, and I forget, set-in sleeves, I think, pretty sure. And so I made the child's version of the set-in sleeves for Isabel. So that is the only sweater I've ever made in pieces. So this was a first for me. Now, knitting the sweater in pieces, I didn't have any problem with that at all. I knit the fronts 2 at a time. One thing about this pattern, it's got this lace on the front. It did not mirror. The lace was not mirrored. It was all used the same pattern, and I didn't go to the trouble of figuring out how to mirror it. Especially since I was doing it 2 at a time, I thought, well, you know, it's not mirrored. I'm not going to mirror it. Then I don't have to worry about it when I'm doing 2 at a time, because then both fronts are, you know, the pattern is the same, even though the front itself. I mean, obviously I had to think about putting the neck details and the sleeve details in the opposite sides, but I didn't have to worry about the pattern. And so I did the fronts 2 at a time. I did the sleeves 2 at a time. And so, you know, I knitted and put it together, and it was ready to go, waiting for buttons in 10 days. So obviously I didn't have any big trouble with it. I don't mind seaming. By the time I was done, you know, like while I was in the middle of seaming this sweater, I thought, oh, well, this is why people knit top down, because I don't want to be seaming the sweater. But when I was done seaming it, it didn't feel like, you know, and, you know, that night when I was finished, I was like, well, that was no big deal, you know. So it's a little funny, you know, it was when I was in the middle of it, it seemed like a slog. But when I was done, it seemed like, you know, really, calm down. It wasn't that big of a deal. And I had bought a couple of Etsy classes that were about finishing, and I ended up rewatching Ann Hansen's just to make sure that I was doing it right, and I got some good tips from her, which helped me like do the sleeves and things like that. And I'm really happy with my seaming. It turned out great, and I'm fine. You know, I'm happy to do another seamed sweater. That's not a problem. The only issue I had, of course, you know, there's nothing like a self-inflicted problem. I decided I wanted the sleeves to be long. Oh, I have a little tiny end I got to put in. I wanted the sleeves to be long so I could fold them up. So I made the cuffs longer. So the cuff is like 2.5 inches. This cuff is 2.5 inches. I made it like this big. And this cuff is already starting too far down on my hand. So you can imagine, I mean, so I had cuff out to here. So I had ribbing, another at least 4 inches of ribbing on this cuff. And as I'm sewing the sleeve up, you know, because you inset the sleeve flat, and then you sew up the side seam, and then continue on and sew up the sleeve. So I stopped sewing the sleeve about here because I didn't want to do the ribbing, because I knew I was going to take it out. Well, the sleeves are knit from the bottom up, so what I wanted to take out was the first part. You know, usually when you knit a sweater top down, you knit the sleeves down, and so the cuff is the last thing you do when you do a bind off. And if you want to shorten it, you just undo your bind off. So I learned a lot about my knitting and what not to do with this fiasco with my cuffs, because turns out I was mistaken in the idea that all you have to do is kind of cut off the cast on. I tried to unpick the cast on, that didn't seem to work, so I cut it, and that didn't seem to help. And finally, as I was going along, I said, oh, this reminds me of when I was doing a sock blank and I was pulling it from the wrong end. And that's what it's like. It's like if you're pulling the sock blank from the wrong end, that's what's happening if you are trying to undo the cast on and undo in that direction. It doesn't work very well. So that was a royal pain in the neck. And I ended up doing each of the sleeves differently, you know, because you learn a few things and then you, whatever. So on the first one, when I was so I had, in the first one I ended up, and I don't know if which one is which, but I ended up cutting it off all the way back to the knitting. And then I picked up the stitches and I knit 2.5 inches, which is what the pattern called for. The other one I kind of picked back and did something else. And then I did a stretchy, and I knit down and did a stretchy bind off. The other thing, so it was a royal pain in the neck. And I realized as I was doing this sweater that my intellectual mind, my brain, understands the mathematics involved in making a garment. In that if you measure your distance and you knit that far, then your sleeve will fit you correctly. If you measure around your body and then you measure the pieces of the sweater and you add them up and they add up to the measurement of your body plus 2 inches if you want ease or whatever, that's how it works. I know in my mind that's how it works. But I realized while I was doing the sweater that somewhere inside me, there's a skeptical person inside me that on some level doesn't believe this. And I don't know why. I just let that, I don't know. I can't explain it, but there's a part of me that kind of rejects the rationality of that. And, you know, I guess it's that inner voice that doesn't think I can ever really make a sweater that fits me well. That it's like not possible to do if you don't buy it and try it on before you buy it, you know. So I don't understand myself sometimes. I really don't. But I keep doing things like making my sleeves too long. The other thing is, you know, like I can't remember for over 20 years now, I've realized that my arms are short, but I can't seem to remember that. And I can't seem to do a tape measure. Anyway, I don't know. I don't understand myself sometimes, but I just have this irrational idea about the sizing of sweaters. I think I need to take Amy Herzog's class and just take it and just have her convince me. And I need to get somebody to measure me. Because I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. But anyway, the rest of the sweater fits me really well. I'm very happy with the rest of the sweater. The sleeve, when I'm putting the sleeve on, it just feels like there's so much fabric. But when I'm wearing it, it doesn't seem like it's too bad. I mean, it's obviously way too long, and that's going to add to the feeling of too much fabric. But other than the length of the sleeves, which I totally did to myself, it is not the pattern's fault. I'm really happy with my sweater. Oh, I already signed off and everything, but I'm back. I forgot about this sweater. One of the things that, you know, I was saying that the sleeves are too big. For my size, the cast on was supposed to be 50 stitches. And I cast on 50 stitches for the sleeves, and it was huge. So I ended up casting on 42 stitches, which is the size, the small size. Smallest size for this sweater. And then which meant that, so it's weird because it said to cast on 50 stitches, but then you decrease down pretty quickly in the stockinette part down to 40 stitches on my size of and then you go from there. So what I did was I cast on only 42 because it was just obviously huge. I mean, look, this is 42. And so then I just decreased down to 40, and I didn't want to make the whole sleeve, which I should have, because the sleeve is just, you know, just feels too big. And the sleeve really is too big. But, so I forgot, that's one change that I did. 42 stitches, but I think what I should have done was follow the sizing for a smaller size for a while, and just be careful to make sure that it was going to match up to my sleeve hole, my armhole size, so that I could put it back in. But that was crazy. When I did 50 stitches, you know, my wrist is 7 inches, and I think it was like 9.5 inches or something crazy like that. Maybe this one's 9 inches. I'm not even sure. It was so big that I knew that was a problem. But what I didn't do was assume that the rest of the sleeve was going to be a problem. And so I think that's why it really feels like I have too much sleeve here. Because I do. I think that the sleeve sizing on that pattern is, you know, not correct. It feels okay up here. It's just the lower arm is just too big. So when I make this again, which I very likely will, of course, there's a ton of patterns out there. My next one will probably be from the Amy Herzog book, but I'll keep that in mind. But I forgot to tell you that 42 instead of 50, and it's still, you know, I mean, it's still pretty roomy. But I did check to make sure I can push up the sleeves and they'll stay up, which you have to do because, you know, maybe I'll wash a dish. Could happen, maybe. So anyway. So, oops, little segue in there to add that part about my sweater. Bye. And the buttons, I got all these crazy buttons. The buttons I bought in at Vogue Knitting Live last year. There's a vintage button lady. She's also at Rhinebeck. She was at Rhinebeck too. And so she sells you these cards of buttons. Oh, I have another card. Let me go get it. So she sells you these cards of buttons where she's gotten buttons and basically she's sized them up and they kind of go together, and she makes these sets of buttons. So I have one here with bigger buttons that are for 6, and this one had 7. Now, these are all different kinds. This button was fat. This is a leather button. Isn't that cool? This button was fat, and it was too fat to go through the buttonhole, so I won't be able to use that one. But these are the buttons. So anyway, so I had these buttons from a year ago because Vogue Knitting Live was just this past weekend. And I used them. So I had my book, the yarn was in my stash, the buttons were in my stash. And I am actually really, really happy with how this sweater turned out. I won't make the arms as long next time I make this sweater, but I would make the sweater again. You know, I might add an inch or 2 to the length of the sweater the next time I make it. And I had plenty of yarn. I could have done that. But, you know, then I would have to measure and know how long I want my sweater. I got to figure out sweaters that I like, and I like the length, and I need to start measuring those sweaters because apparently I have no excuse. I have no idea what's the matter with me. But anyway, I'm happy with the sweater. I know it doesn't sound like that, but I am really, really happy with the sweater. I put the buttons on it this morning, and I've been wearing it. I did take it off to take my shower, but then I put it back on. Dennis took my picture. So, this is finished object number 5. The other thing I have in my notes is the flax light I made for Sammy, but I think I showed that to you. I think I had finished that, and I'll show it to you. But I'll put a picture of Sammy because she's so adorable wearing the sweater I made. That's the Flax Light by Tin Can Knits. And that I made her for Christmas. Well, I gave it to her on the needles. She's 1.5. She didn't care. And so I gave her sweater on New Year's Day. And so she was adorable, as always. She's really cute. So those are my finished objects. I've been knitting like a crazy person. I knit this sweater since the last time I talked to you. And I really like it. I don't want me to sound like I'm mad at myself, because why do I do that? But I like the sweater and I'm really happy with it. And the pattern was well written. I didn't have any trouble with it. I think if I made it again, I might go to the trouble of reversing the pattern on the, you know, so that they're mirrored rather than exactly the same. Although, to tell you the truth, it's like, it is so not obvious to me that it's different, you know, that it's not mirrored. It may not be worth the trouble, because, oops, hello, I do like, excuse me while I wipe my nose. I did like being able to do them 2 at a time, because I don't want to think about, and I did the sleeves 2 at a time, I don't want to think about matching or whatever if I'm doing it all together. And I do socks 2 at a time, and so that feels very natural to me, so that worked really, really well. So anyway, I've been busy, and I'm really happy with my sweater. And I'm sorry to complain about it so much, because I really am happy. And I have whips. So I think I'll be doing hats instead of socks for my, you know, easy, don't want to think about it knitting. Here's another 2x2. And this is also in Knit Picks Brava. This is in Dove Heather. I think the first one was in, I think it's called Peacock. And I have this in my cute little bag that Helen gave me as my Christmas Day gift for my Advent with her. And this was made Crafty Toads bag, but this is an adorable little bag. I really like it. I like the handles. I like the snap. Polka dots. Anyway, I love this bag, and it's perfect. And I have more, you know, the next time. This will be my hat bag. I'll be carrying this at least till July. 2 tickets for every hat. So the other thing that I am working on, and this is in my Round Rabbit bag that I bought from Nancy at Round Rabbit. This is such a fun bag. This is actually knit wool. This is not printed something. This is knit wool. She got a knitting machine. And so she took yarn she had in her stash and she knitted up. And then she's like, what the heck am I going to do with all this knitted fabric? She was just practicing with her machine. And so she made it into bags. And this is like a kind of a, I don't know, kind of linen, I don't know. I love this bag. And then she put a squishy inside. So I am using this bag and enjoying every minute of having this bag. And I am making a fish bell. Fish bell is a shawl. This is a gift. Isn't that pretty? I'm making this in fingering. And this is by Isolde Teague. And I am making this with yarn. I'm trying to work from my stash, and I'm trying to cut down on my yarn buying in 2018. So on New Year's Eve, I bought a huge box full of yarn from Craftsy. They were having a half price sale. And I have actually never used Craftsy yarn, so it was a little bit crazy of me to buy so much yarn that I had never actually seen before. But a lot of it, most of it was Cloudborn, which I think is their brand. And this is alpaca wool sock silk fingering. And this is in the Prism colorway, which I absolutely adore. Now, I don't think you're going to be able to tell, but this yarn has threads, fibers of all kinds of colors in it. There are reds and pinks. So this is a Reed's Gray, but it's got so much going on, and I really like it. And it's a good thing, too, because I bought myself a sweater's quantity of this in DK weight. I know. So you can see I've got my lifelines. I used dental floss for lifelines, and I needed the lifelines, so I'm glad I did it. I'm actually pretty far on this. I'm surprised. This is really fun to make. Now, when I started it with the garter tab, this yarn is fuzzy and not particularly tightly spun. It's a single. And when I was knitting it, and I'm knitting this on a size 7, I think. Yeah, size 7 Chiaga. So I'm knitting it, well, I started on a 6. And so I'm doing my garter tab, and I don't know if everyone is familiar with a garter tab, but it's a very common way to start it, like a triangular shawl. Where the heck is it? It's up here. Can't even tell. So you start off and you knit, you cast on 3 stitches, and then you knit 6 rows of those 3 tiny little stitches. And this is fingering single fuzzy yarn, and I'm on a size 6. I started on a 6, and I'm trying to knit. So you knit 6 rows of garter, 3 stitches wide, right? And then to do a garter tab, so you knit, so you have 3 garter bumps on the side because you have 6 rows. So you pick up the garter bumps on the sides, and then you go around and you also pick up the cast on 3 stitches. So you end up with 9 stitches on your needle, and it ends up being a little tiny thing like this. This part, this little part right here is, and it's called a garter tab. And that's how a lot of triangular shawls start. Because they start in the middle, the back middle, and then they go down. And then you can see increases. And it's got this spine going all the way down, all the way down. So I started knitting. So when I was working, fiddling with this tiny little piece of knitting, and I'm trying to do, and it was a size 6 needle, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to hate this yarn. And I'm doing a whole shawl in it. It got a lot better once I got a little more knitting going on. I knit this in a size 6. I don't know if you can even see. Only for about an inch. And then I realized that I needed a bigger needle, so I just switched to a 7. And I like the fabric a lot better. So anyway, this is a gift, and I'm really enjoying knitting it, and I love the color. It reads gray, so you're probably just seeing gray, but there are tiny little red threads and all kinds of colors in this, and it's called Prism. But, you know, from far away, it reads kind of gray, but it's got something going on, and I really like it. And like I said, I bought myself a sweaters quantity in DK, so. Anyway, so this is the, why can't I remember that? Ishbel. You'd think I would remember Ishbel. By Isolde Teague. And a lot of people have made this. But I'm being very careful. Last night, right before I went to bed, I put a lifeline in my last thing because I had to tink back like 5 rows. Because I got off somehow and I couldn't figure out where, and so I went back to my last lifeline, and I hadn't proved my count at the last lifeline, so I even had to pull back past the lifeline. So now I know it's right. I'm getting ready to start a new chart, and so I'm ready to go. But I have actually really enjoyed knitting this, and I'm looking forward to gifting it. Now, I bought this yarn before I realized that the alpaca in my boxy was a little itchy. So the boxy, the Duin yarn is 70% alpaca. This is 45% alpaca, 25% merino, and 25. That doesn't add up. Excuse me, I dropped my thing. 45% alpaca, 25% merino wool, and 30% silk. So this is going to drape like a dream. But 45% alpaca, I hope my giftee can wear alpaca, and I believe that she can. And And I'm hoping it's not too prickly for me because I have a sweater's quantity of this. So anyway, so these are my two whips, my hat and my shawl. I have swatched for my next sweater. And I'll talk about that. I did work a little bit on my scrappy blanket, and I did work a little bit on my Christmas Eve cast-on socks, but they're not getting too much love since they play the same role. Well, I'm at the heel for them, and they play the same role as the hats, and I get points for the hats. Door prize tickets for the hats, so I'll be moving to hats, I think, in general. So that's what I've been working on. Oh my gosh, I was so happy with this sweater. But in the middle of making the sweater, I was making hats too, so I didn't do anything but knit. I really didn't do very much besides knit since I talked to you last. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay. So since I started making the hats, and in the last few days, the Knit Girls have posted. The other thing that they you get door prizes for is if you knit patterns by their teachers, the people who are teaching their classes, and if you get points for using the yarn from the vendors who sell at their marketplace. Now, it turns out the list of vendors, I own Fat Squirrel bag, and I ordered another one. I admit. So I don't, but they didn't, but it's not yarn, so I don't know if I get a point if I use her bag. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe it doesn't. But of the long list of vendors, indie dyers who are vendors at SSK, I only have yarn from one of them. I think it's called Two Guys Fiber. I have some yarn from Two Guys, and that's it. So I won't be getting any points for using the vendor's yarns because I'm going to try not to buy too much more yarn. But the good news for me is that Isabel Kramer is going to be one of the teachers. The teachers, I don't remember everybody, the teachers, Kristen Kapoor, Isabel Kramer, and two other people, and I don't remember who they were. But I knit 2 Isabel Kramer sweaters last year. I love Isabel Kramer. So I had gotten one of my other purchases before New Year's. Now I say that like I haven't bought yarn. I have joined the Crafty Toads yarn club for the first 3 months of the year because they're basing it on a year at the museum, and they're very into art, and so they showed their inspiration picture for their yarn club, and their first inspiration picture is an ancient Egyptian satirical papyrus. Ancient Egyptian satirical papyrus. I had to order it. I'm so into Egypt these days. So I did. I have signed up for that yarn club. That yarn didn't come in. You'll see it next time. I'm sure it will be in by then. Because I think it mails this week. So maybe not. It may not be here. I don't know. So anyway, before the end of the year, I was watching Devin on the Francophy podcast. I really like her podcast. She seems like a lovely woman, and I like her yarn. I have others of her yarn. I have some minis, and I have a color called Iris. So I bought her yarn before, but she had made a hat out of this yarn. This is a color called Lichen. The yarn is her Normandy base? Provence base, which is 75% superwash merino and 25% merino mulberry silk. It is to die for. And this is how it knits up. Isn't that beautiful? Now this is a little ratty because Dennis rescued my swatch from the backyard. Pearl liked it so much that she took it outside to play with. But I had already made my decision. So when I do a swatch, because of course I'm the expert on swatches and making things fit well, when I do a swatch, I usually start with the size of needle that they suggest in the pattern. I am apparently a very tight knitter, so I always have to go up a needle size. So this is the size 4, which is what the pattern says. And you're supposed to get 23 stitches to the 4 inches on a size 4. Now, so I have washed and blocked this. I know it looks a little beat up, but it was outside. But before, as I was knitting it, I was testing it, and I could see that I was getting way more. And unwashed and unblocked, I was getting 30 stitches for every 4 inches. So I knew 4 wasn't going to do it. So then I just switched needles and I kept going. Now, in this one time, I did a reverse stockinette so that it would be really easy to see where it ended. I'm not going to do that again. I think I should have just kept it up. I should have just put the pearl row. The middle one is a size 6. And I've got 27 stitches to the inch unblocked. So I went up to an 8. This is an 8. And this looked like it was going to be about right. But it felt like the fabric was too thin. I don't know if you can see through that because I don't have too much light behind me. No. It just felt like a little too loose to me. Maybe you'd like to know what pattern I was going to do. And then you could be a better judge. But anyway, it's a little bit loose. Hold on. Let me get the pattern. So I had picked a pattern out for this fabric, for this fiber yarn that I was going to do. I really liked it. And then they published the names of the teachers, and Isabel Kramer, I can find an Isabel Kramer sweater that I want to knit in a heartbeat, which of course I did. So I am going to knit the Karina. So I looked at all the pictures. None of the pictures looked like it was a really, really, I think I would have to wear a cami under that. Maybe not. It doesn't look so bad now. Well, it's been washed. So anyway, I'm going to have to go back and remeasure this. I'm thinking I might go with the 6. And I wish I had knit more of the 6. I stopped knitting the 6 because I was pretty sure it wasn't going to work. And I went up to an 8. And the 8 unblocked worked. And I'm going to just measure it again just to see. So I'm not sure what, because it's actually not, it's not so bad. Before it was washed, it was pretty see-through. But isn't that going to knit up beautifully? I love this yarn. It's got a little gray going on and the speckles, and I think it's going to be beautiful. And so this is what I'm knitting. I am knitting the Karina. Couldn't read it backwards. Isn't that pretty? So it's like a spring sweater. I might be able to even wear it at SSK because it's going to be air conditioning. I won't wear it outside in Nashville in July, but I could wear it on the inside. So I don't know. I'm going to go back and measure this again and decide what, that might be all right. I think the 8 did it. It just, so, but it calls for a 4. Do I really want to go up to an 8? Or will I believe my swatch? Swatches are big fat liars. So anyway, so this is the next thing. This is very needle adjacent, although on my knit night I said I wasn't going to start my next sweater until I finished spinning, applying the yarn I have on my wheel right here. Now that I've cleaned up my room a little bit, I can actually sit and spin in here if I wanted to. But I think I'm a liar, and I think I might be casting this sweater on tonight. This is knit from the top down. This is not knit in pieces, it's a raglan. And the only details really are the seaming details and the garter ridge on the bottom, but it's got a little seaming detail on the sides and down the front, and then it's got the garter border on the sleeves and the bottom of the sweater. But I love Isabel Kramer, so I was so excited. I hope I didn't get into her class. I don't even know what she's teaching. I don't even care. I want to be in her class. I love her patterns. So last year I made the Malin sweater and the Monte Rosa sweater. Those are both hers. And my next sweater after this is the Kira sweater. And I think I might be making this out of that DK. I'll have to see what's in my stash. I might be making this out of that DK I just bought from Craftsy. All the, the back is where the beautiful detail is on this one. Otherwise, the front is, and the back, not only, it's kind of hard to see, but it's got that cable detail, and it's got broken seed stitch along the sides of that. But as far as I can tell on the front, and, because it's knitting around, it's hard to tell where the front is. Excuse me. But when I look at the pictures, I don't think that there's broken seed stitch in the front. I think it's plain stockinette. So I think all the details are really in the back, except this is a tiny little pocket in the hem. Isn't that fun? And I think I'm going to try to do the pocket detail. But the knit along for SSK to get your points, and for the sweaters, you get 100. It's the same as the hats. You get 1 ticket for every 100 yards that you knit, and if you use the yarn from their people, you get an extra 2 tickets, I think. But I don't have yarn from the people, so I'm not going to get those 2 tickets, but I should be able to get quite a few for 2 sweaters. And the knit along runs from January 1st to April 30th, I think. So I should be able to knit 2 more sweaters. Oh, I'm so happy with my sweater I made. I cannot tell you. Okay, so I do have a couple more goodies to... Well, I think only one more goodie to show you. I have a huge box from Craftsy, and I will show you that yarn when I knit with it. It was all half price, and it was, it's not super exciting yarn, other than the Prism, which I really like, and I got a DK weight of that, and then the rest I got were fingering, but I got some sweaters quantities of fingering. But the other thing that I have bought in my effort to organize myself, I have bought a needle organizer. I got this on Etsy. I thought it was very nice. It will hold tons of needles because each of these, see, there's a pocket in the back, and then this little strip creates another pocket. So there's tons and tons. So this one I put in the front because it's got a little cord, and this one has a bigger cord, so it's in the back. So I have just started, as I came across my needles that are not interchangeables, I started putting them in here. Now I need to find a place that this can hang. I have a really pretty container. It's a like a folder that's a beautiful tapestry fabric that I've been keeping my circular needles in. But it's about this big, and you have to wrap the cords really tight to fit them in the pockets. And the cords are the thing that drive me crazy, and I think not having the cords wrapped so tight for the most of their life will be better for me and make me happier with my needles. So, and I ran out of space in that, so I'm going to empty that. I'm going to put my needles in here and think of something else to do with that needle organizer, or maybe it'll be in a giveaway at some point because it's beautiful. I paid a lot of money for it. I really like it. But I don't like having to curl up my needles, the cords. I don't like that. So, oh, I forgot to tell you. This is from Buttermilk Cottage. Buttermilk Cottage on Etsy. And I love the fabric. And I thought it was a great idea. And the pockets are fatter down here, which is good because I got a fat needle, and they go to very skinny up here. And I do have the Flex-On pens. I need to buy more of these because I can never find a pen when I want it. This is the Flex-On, which is the kind of pen, Frixon, Frixon, F-R-I-X-O-N. The kind that you can, if you heat it up, it goes away. So, I'm probably gonna end up writing on the white. Maybe I'll try to find a blue pen. Maybe not. Put the sizes on. See, it's got even like the fabric has like little snowflakes here. I really liked it. Came right away. So, Buttermilk Cottage. And Buttermilk Cottage is going to help me organize my needles. So I'm happy with that. So, since I was kind of appalled at the box from Craftsy, I don't think I'll show you all that. And it's just too much anyway. The best one is the one I've started using for that shawl. I'm really enjoying knitting that shawl, so I was glad. So anyway, I guess I'll stop. Thank you, Susan. Other than that, I don't know that there's anything really to talk about. We are going to Chile in February. We're very excited. We're doing one of our tours. We're going to go from the Atacama Desert to all the way down to the fjords down in Patagonia at the far south end of Chile. And but we get to spend a couple days in Santiago. We're going early before we meet up with our tour group so that we can spend a little more time in Santiago and meet up with Mane and Connie and their families, and I'm very excited. So that's the big news coming up, and I guess that's it. I hope you guys have lots and lots of time to do the things that you love and that bring you joy. And I'm just double checking to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. And I hope you have a wonderful couple of weeks till I see you again. And happy knitting!